I'm troubled by this case with the hit the cow with the stick. I mean, what borrower in his right mind would say just hit the cow with a stick?
The Gemara is going to ask you a question.
Yes,
We're in the Gemara on Tzadik Tes Amid Aleph and Bab Metzia. Around the middle of the Amud, a little bit above the middle of the Amud. The first word on the line is Sheyotzas. Sheyotzas, and it's the last two words on the line. Omar Rav. Omar Rashi. What are we dealing with in this case where the shoyo will be chayiv when he said shalach, and it was being sent in the hand of the eved of the mashil. The case that we're talking about, up until now, what we're understanding is that he will be chayiv as soon as it leaves the reshus, like we just said. He said, hit it with a stick and it will go out to me, I'll be then responsible. He'll be responsible. So then we said he's chayiv. So that means that when it'll go out into the shus sarabim, he'll be responsible. But like, who would want to do such a thing? Because when it goes out, it may wander away. He might lose it. There's more chance that he will end up paying. He'll be responsible. Something might happen to the animal. So that's what Rav Ashi is addressing. Omar Rav Ashi, Ochma Eskin, what are we talking about? That Shoyal would say, hit it with a stick and send it to me. Kagoin, Shahaisa Chatzeiro, Shel Shoyal Lifnim Mechatzera Shel Amashil. That it's a chatzer b'toich a chatzer, within a chatzer. The chatzer of the mashil is open to the shus rabim, but in like the back of the chatzer of the mashil, there's an opening to another chatzer. That's the chatzer of the shoyel. In order to get through the shoyel's chatzer to his house, he has to always walk through the chatzer of the mashil. That's the way it goes. So when he tells him hit the stick and the animal will come to me, it's going from the chatzer of the mashil directly into the chatzer of the shoyel. So that's what he's saying. Just hit him over to me, send him over to me. As soon as he leaves the reshus of the shoyel, of the mashil, the shoyel's willing to take responsibility because then that will be his chatzer. So it's lefim mechatzer shel mashil. The chimash mishal challah vaday lahasam azla. As soon as the mashil will send him, he's definitely going into the chatzer of the shoyel. There's no other place for it to go. However, if it was a case, then we would say that there would be high, that it's a case where the shoyel is mekabel al nafsho, is meshabed nafsho, to take on responsibility. According to this, if it wouldn't have been like this, and it would have gone from the shus of the mashil to the shus rabim, and then it would have had to make his way somehow, then could we say that the shoyel, no shoyel wouldn't be meshabed as nafsho and would not be responsible? More says, Iachi, it's pashut if it's going straight from the shus of the mashil into the shus of the shoyel. So then what's the shaila that the shoyel should then be when he said hit it and bring it and let it go out of your reshus and into his, that he will then be responsible? Of course he's going to be responsible. It's in his reshus. The chiddush is, so ma'alemer, lo tzricha, we're still telling you something in this case. T'ikil gazaisa, because when the mashil would hit it, when it's in his reshus, it might not get out of the reshus and get into the reshus of the shoyel, because there's a lot of little hedges and other things that the animal can hide in. So maybe if you would just hit it, it won't get to his reshus. And if something would happen to it, he had been makabel on himself to be responsible for it. You might think that the shoyel, might have thought, we're being told that the shoyel is samach, that it will leave the reshus of the mashil, because you might have thought that he wouldn't be samach, that it would act, just by hitting it, it would leave the reshus and that go into his reshus, and that he would rely on that. The ika gezaisa, there's many different little bushes that the animal could hide in. So you might have thought, Lo sam chodaite. You might have thought that the shoyl would not rely on just hitting it and having it go into the other issues, because he would be afraid that it would stay in the issues of the mashil, and he wouldn't want to be responsible for anything that happens to it when it was still in the issues of the mashil. Below Asiya, maybe it would stay where it is below Asiya. Ozlul Hade wouldn't come to him. Kamash Milan, that he he would rely that it would leave the rishus of the mashil and go into his rishus. Kamash Milan de Samcha Daite, and that's what he's being told when he says, and that would be the case of our Mishnah, where he was chayev, was because he told him, hit it, let it come out of your rishus. As soon as it steps foot out of your rishus, then the shoyl would then be responsible. And Amish was also talking about in cases where it was given to the Eved. The Eved would be just like hitting it with a stick. Any way that it would leave the rishus of the mashil, the shoyl was mishabed himself to accept responsibility. Omar, and that's why Amish says chayev, even in the hand of the Eved of the mashil, when the shoyl said shalach. And in the Brisa, he's potter when it's in the hand of the Eved of the Mashil. And in both Mishnah and the Brisa, we're talking about Eved Kanani. The reason he's potter in the Brisa is because he never said hit it with a stick. And therefore, when it was in the hand of the Eved, it was still considered in the rishus of the Mashil until it would actually leave the hand of the Eved. Omer Rav Huna, Hashoyel Kardon Mechavero. Rav Huna says that whoever borrows a axe or any kli from his friend, Bokabo Kanu, as soon as he will use the kli, the axe, then he's kind of the shela, the kinyan shela. Lo Bokabo, lo Kanu. As if he didn't use it yet, if he didn't chop with it yet, he's not kind of the kli, the kinyan shela.
And yet he's received it by hand from the lender.
That's the Gemara's problem. So as we just saw before, that the Mesira was what actually made the kinyan for the Shayla and made the Shayla responsible for anything that happens to it. Mesira, the giving over of the object, of the para, from the Mashil to the Shayla was already made the Shayla responsible for Oinsin, which would happen to it. And here we're seeing, according to Rav Huna, that the shoyl is only kind of the object that he's borrowing when he uses it. So it seems to contradict what we said before. So Gemara says, Lamaya, what is this kinyan for? If it's for the purpose of being mechayev him on the einsim, so then that's a stira to what we said before. So then if we're saying for einsim, so we have mashana para to mishas she'ela, that the chiyuv for the onsen came at the time of the Mesir, when the object was given over from the mashal to the shayel. And here we're seeing with the axe that it's not totally on just giving over the object, it's totally on using the object. So then what is the kanu, what is the kinyan that we're talking about over here? It doesn't seem to be kinyan in that sense, a kinyan for the beginning of the responsibility of the shayel. Elul l'chazorah. What we're talking about in the chazorah, in the case where the owner of the object wants to take it back and to retract wants to be an Indian giver. Well, actually, that's different. He wants to retract on the lending and take it back and say, I don't want to lend it anymore. I need it now. For whatever reason, he wants to retract. So in the case where the person already used it, that's kanu for that the owner can't. Because there's a certain fixed amount of time that a person is allowed to use different items. And if he already used it, then the shayl will be allowed to continue to use it for that amount of time that was stipulated. Either they stipulated, or there's a fixed amount of time that for every particular item that it's usually lent for. And then he'll be able to keep it for that whole amount of time because he already started using it. But if he hadn't yet started using it, then the mashil would be able to take it back. So Bokabo, if he started chopping with it, lo matzi hodabe, then the mashil. The mashil cannot take it back. Lo bokabo, but if he had me chopped with it, matzi mashil hoderbe, and then the mashil would be able to take it back. And that din of Rav Huna is cholik on a din of Rav Ami that we see now. The pliga de Rav Ami. It's a opposing din, contradictory din to what we see Rav Ami saying. Now, as we see that Gabi Chazora, Rav Huna is saying that once you start using it, it's being able to take back the object that was lent out depends on whether the shoyl started using it or not. Rav Ami says, "Pliga de Rabbi Ami, the Omar Rabbi Ami, Hamashil Kardoim Shel Hektish." So, a person who takes an axe of hektish and he lends it out to another person. So Mo'al, the person who lent it out is Mo'al because he just gets the benefit. He just benefited. First of all, he took it from Rishus Hektish and put it out into a new Rishus of somebody else, gave it to a person. And he's Mo'al because he had a Hana by way of that. His Hana is a Tovas Hana, that now the person who he lent it to feels he owes him a favor, and that's worth a small amount of money or some amount of money. And that's his benefit, and it's with Hektish, taking Hektish from the Rishus of Hektish into the Rishus of Hediot. That's Mila. He's Chayav Mila. He's going to have to pay. And is Mo'al Lefi Toivas Hana Shabo, the amount that it was worth for him to have the Shoyel feel that a favor was done for him and feel that he owes the Mashil a favor back. The Chavero Muter. However, the Shoyel can then take the axe and use it, Lichachila, and there's no problem of him using it. Muter Livakabo Lichachila, there's no problem, because once the Mashil was Chayav Mila and had to pay to Bedek Abayis that amount of money, then Rashi says in the second wide line in Rashi, he says Yotzes or the first wide line, or the last narrow line of Rashi. So v'chavero muter levakabo lechachila. The one, the shoyel can use it. Lechachila, there's no problem of using it, even though it's an act of hektish. The reason is afilu yoda la'achar shebo liyodo shehu shel hektish. Even if he'll find out after it came to his hand, I guess, that it's of hektish. Shemecheben sheshogag bo amashil, since the mashil was over on mila b'shogeg, v'nis chayev dmei toivas hana, and he became chayev to pay toivas hana to the bedek lehektish. So at that moment, yotzas haniyosel lechulin, the hana that he would get from that any hana of that axe. Maybe the axe itself would still be hektish. He'd have to return it. It'll go back to hektish. But any hana from the axe, when it goes out to chulin, and it's mutar for the shoyel to use it lechachila. So the Gemara says, so if somebody took that axe of hektish and lent it out to a person, so he's mo'al, the tovas hana shabo, v'chaveiro mutar levakabo lechachila, he can use it. Even if he knows that it was hektishes. So
I don't understand the explanation of why. Rashi seemed to be trying to explain why, but I didn't get that he did explain why. Why is it that the shoel, once he finds out it belongs to hektish, doesn't have to give it back? Why can he still use it?
So more we'll touch on it, and then if it doesn't, we'll explain it. So the Shaila Gemara is according to Rav Huna that we had above, that until the person uses the axe, it's not kind of for taking it back. That you could take it back. It would still be able to be taken back. And once it's used, then it can't be taken back. So in this case of the hektish, the axe of hektish, we see that we're talking about that it's being discovered that it's of hektish before he uses it, because we're saying that even after he finds out that it's hektish, he can go ahead and use it lechachila for the first time. So we see that Why is he? If it was like Rav Huna, that until it was actually used, there was no kinyan in terms of being able to give it back, he should have just given it back to Hektish at that point, because and then the Masha wouldn't have been over on Mila either. So it must be that there was a kinyan even for the Chazor, even before using it, and that's a kasha on Rav Huna. So we see it, that seems to be a chiluk between Rav Huna's understanding of when a lent object can be taken back, and Rav Ami's understanding. That's what the Gemara says. V'ilo kono, and if it wasn't kono, like according to Rav Huna, it wasn't kono yet because he hasn't chopped with the axe yet. So the amai more, why would there be mila by the mashil? He should just, it wasn't kono. And also, why should the shoyel be able to take it and start chopping with it if it hadn't, if there was no kinyan? You should be nihadre v'lo liknayev back. Don't be kind of it for the purpose of chazor, and there won't be any isra of mila. So seems like that there was some type of a kinyan for the purpose of not being able to give it back, even before having chopped with it. And that's a kasha on Rav Huna. We have another kasha on what Rav Huna said. The Peliga de Rav Elazar, also from Rav Elazar. Amar Rav Elazar, v'derech shetiknu meshicha b'lekuchos, kach tiknu meshicha b'shomin. That there was a takana that when a person buys an object, that mammon is usually enough to be kained, but the Rabbanan were sakin that you need mashicha, like we learned, because maybe there'll be a delay in the barn if there was, and if we were relying on the kinyan deraisa of kesef, and then the owner of the barn, and then if there was no chiyuv of mashicha, so the lokeach might have left the wheat barn because he knew he owned it already. And if there'll be a fire, the Moicha wouldn't try to save it because he would know that it's not his. So they were masakin a takana that there's a kinyan won't be chal until there's a mashicha, and therefore that will motivate the Moicha to save it because he'll realize that he will still be responsible for it because there was no mashicha yet, even though money was given. So they were masakin mashicha by lekuchos, and they were also masakin a mashicha by shomrim. If a person wants somebody to watch an object for him, there has to be a mashiach before the shomer will have the responsibilities of a shomer. That's what Rav Elazar said. And we have a brisa that supported that idea. And that's directly, that right there is contradictory to Rav Huna. Because Rav Huna says that the mashiach alone would not already create would not already create a kinyan that the original owner wouldn't be able to retract on the loan, the lending of the object. Here we see the mashicha would be enough, would be like a kinyan already, even for shomrim, and the shoyel is a shomer. We have a brisa that supports this idea also. Tanya nami hachi kishem shetiknu mashicha b'lekuchos kach tiknu mashicha b'shomrim. And we have two. I guess these are Amoraim that are choluk on Rav Huna's din. Choluk is that disagree with what Rav Huna said, that for the kinyan, to be able to go back on something which was lent out, that it's necessary to use the object for what it's lent for. What they seem to hold that it's not. There's already a kinyan even before that stage, that the owner wouldn't be able to retract on an object that he lent to somebody. And the brisa continues, Ukishem, he says, Shekarka niknis b'kesef, the karka, just as karka is kind of with money, ubishtar b'chazaka, in these three ways. So kach schirus nikna b'kesef, ubishtar ub'chazaka. So schirus is also nikna b'kesef, ubishtar b'chazaka. And the Gemara is at this point assuming schirus means an object, like a movable object. It's not assuming it's talking about property at this point.
What's interesting than
Metaltalin, because to be kind of metaltalin with chazaka, because if we're talking about schirus, if the person rented a metaltal and a movable object, so if he rented it already, so then there's mashicha on it. Where would we see that you would ever need more than the mashiach itself to already make the person is, or that the renter would be responsible. He's already responsible as soon as he just says moshech it, takes it. Where would we see that there is a need for that there could be any further kinyanim on a rented object that he was already moshech? Kesef, if he's already moshech, what that is going to be further kinyan after he gives the money. If he's already taken it into his reshus, it's going to be further chiyuvim. If then after he takes it, they write up a star that says he's borrowing this axe. He's already taken. He's already been moshech. He has it in his hand. Why should he? Rashi says schirus. The second line down in Rashi's sochar behem of a kelim, that we're talking about a behem of a kelim. So more asks. Schirus maya vidate. What do you mean that he was moshechid, and then now there's also going to be these kinyonim, just as we saw with karka. There's kinyonim like this on rented objects that are movable, metaltal. Omer Rav Chisda, schirus karka. We're talking about the renting of an apartment or of land. So therefore, we can understand why the schirus could still work the way land works, because you can't be moshechet, you can't pick it up. And so therefore, we can say that the kinyonim that work with schirus will work like karka, with kesef, shtar, and chazaka. Omar Shmuel, Haiman de gozel chavitza de tamre mechavera. Person who stole these are dates that are pressed together, and they always press 50 dates together. That's a chavitza of tamre, of dates. So a person stole this from somebody. Now, these pressed dates, if they're sold to a merchant, the merchant buys them for 49 prutot, not for 50 prutot. And he sells each one separately, and he makes one pruta by selling 50 of them because he only paid 49. So the Gemara says, he sold them. The Eisbor Chamishim Tamrei Agav Adadi. In each pressed brick of dates, there's 50. Mizdavnin benun nochi chade. When they're sold for 49 prutot, 50 minus 1. But if they're sold individually, they're sold for 1 pruta each. Chade mizdavnin benun. 1, then they're sold, it ends up getting sold for 50. And if the ganav, when he goes to pay back the hediot that he stole it from, how does he pay him back? Does he pay him back 49, or does he pay him back 50? So the hediot, if he's returning, is stolen, that maybe the monetary value of what he stole, mishalom chamishim nochi chada. He pays back 49 to a hediot. Even though if the hediot would want to sell them individually, the hediot would have gotten 50 for them. But if he's returning this stolen brick of dates to hektish, he pays more. He pays 50 plus a chomish plus 5% more. The hektish mishalom chamishim b'chum shayu, 50 plus a fifth more to hektish. Like the Gemara. And in hektish, there's a different din. Masha'in came b'mazik. Whereas a person would mazik hektish, then he wouldn't have to pay the chomish. It's because of a pasuk that the lo misham chumsha. The reason why you don't pay chumsha, the Gemara explains, the Omar Mar ish ki yochel kodesh prat lemazik. So when a person will eat kodesh, it talks about adding the chomish, and when he will, now they come to be exclude to be mayit, when he'll damage hektish, there won't be a chomish. So we see there a difference between a hediot having to return to a hediot and having to return to hektish. The Gemara asks, Maskiv lo Rav Bibi Bar Abaye. Lehediot. What did he return? He only had to return 45. Amay Meshalem Chamishim Nachi Chada. Why should he be returning 49? 49. Namely, the Hediot should be able to tell him, I want to sell them individually. So give me 50 back. Namely, Ano Chada Chada. Habi Mizdab Nino. I want to sell them separately. My answer is no. He doesn't have the right to say that. Omer Rab Huna Breda Rab Yeshua. Shaman base saw the Tanan. We learned that if a person in mazik's a field, is mazik a field with mazik of shen, how does he pay him back? The animal ate a furrow, a row of produce. Does he pay him as that row would cost on the shuk, buying 10 cabbages in the shuk? Or does he estimate the whole field of cabbages minus the one row of cabbage? And that's the way we do it. We take the whole field. It's a kula to make that the din hashava should be easier for people that steal to return what they stole. So they take the whole value of the whole field minus what this field would be worth without that one row, and that's how much difference that the Goslin would have to pay back. And that's so too over here. That's how much this person would have to pay back. The fetus to kana, sashavim, that we would take the full value. See, where we are on the Gemara in Rashi down one line. So what why is he not paying back 50? Why is he only paying back 49? Shaman Bey saw, but also saw the Tanan. We learn that that's how the person who's mazik somebody's field, he has to pay back. So Rabbi Nezikin, Dishen, Ki Yivayer Ish, Soder. Okay, when he destroys, when he ruins it, Tanan. So Ketzad Mishalemis, how does he pay it back? Masha Zeg, how do you pay what damage was done? Shaman Bey saw, they estimate the whole large area, field, but also saw that in that field, Kama Haisa Yofe, the Kama Hi Yofe, and how much it's worth after the damage. The Aim Medaktakin, Li Ois, Shaman Achila, we don't look at the Achila as it would be sold on the Shuk. Achila Levada alone. No, we look at it only in relation to the whole field. Ma'isa Shava Be'aruga Zu Shinecheles Elama Nechsar Beisor Midemea. Rather, how was the whole field depreciated because this amount of produce was eaten? Imayabolim Kor Hakarka, if the person would go to sell the karka, Imzuyasa with its produce on it. So it would only depreciate, it would be a small amount of depreciation. So that's what they're doing over here. They're going the kula, actually, for the one who has to Goslin, who I guess he's like a mazik. They're going the kula. So what do we see? That in the case where he had to, above, Shmuel said that he has to, when he's returning to a Hediot, he returns 49. When he's returning to Hektish, he's returning 50, plus it's Chomish. We asked, the Memar from the above Brisa, that we see that according to Shmuel, Hediot is different than Hektish. The Sovar Shmuel din, Hediot, love Kedin, Gavoadami, that they have differing dinim applying to them. We're going to see a Mishnah where Shmuel was saying that the din between a Hediot and a Hektish seems to be coming out the same. Tanan, we learn in a Mishnah, in Me'ilah, so not all Evan, Okora, Mehektish, Lo Mo'al. if a person took some raw materials like rocks or beams from hektish, at that moment when he takes it, he's not over on Mila. However, if he gives it over to somebody which is taking it out of the reshus of hektish, nosan lechavero, at that moment, hu moal b'chavero lo moal. That's similar to what we said before. And if he'll give it over to his friend, the person who gave it over, then he might see it from the reshus of hektish, put it into the reshus of hediot, and got the benefit tovis hanoah. He would be over on Mila, but the chaver who received a rock, a stone, building brick, would not be over on Mila. Lo moal. However, if the person who originally took it, or maybe the person who received it, the chaver, born b'toich beis, so if you put it into his house, he wouldn't change the building block. He would put it in his skylight where it's anyway opened, and he wouldn't destroy the brick, and it would be intact the way it was originally taken from hektish. So then we say, lo mo'al, there will not be any me'ila even when he put it into his building, until he'll get hanoah dwelling under it. Ad shiyoder tachteya b'sheva pruta. Until he get hanoah from it, that it protected him from, because it proved his building, the amount of a sheva pruta. So we see that. And then it goes on. V'yosef Rabbi Abua Kamei de Rabbi Yochanan on that. V'yosef V'komar Mishmei de Shmuel. They said the name of Shmuel. Zois Omeres, that Shmuel said, from this case of the hektish, where we saw that in this case of the hektish, Shmuel wanted to derive something. So we can learn we could then derive from this case, which is hektish, that if a person went and lived in if a person had a house on his estate that was usually not rented out anyway, and somebody went and lived in it without the owner knowing about it, it's a shaila in Baba Kama. And Shmuel would want to learn from here, this case of hektish, that if a person went and lived in that house, he would have to pay the owner, even though that's a case of zenene, zelo chosa. The reason why it's nana is because the one who lived there would normally have needed a place to sleep that night, and the other one was not chosa because he doesn't rent that house out anyway. So that's the case of zenene, zelo chosa. We should therefore be able to be patient from here. I'll explain in a second that he would have to pay him. Why? Because in the case of hektish doesn't know what's being done with these building blocks. And as soon as it was used, and he lived under the brick that he put into his house, a sheva prutas he has to pay. He'll be mila. So we should learn from there that if someone uses something of somebody else's without that other person knowing about it, that they have to pay him. And so what do we see? We see that Shmuel is equating because he's trying to derive that case of a hediot from the case of a hektish. Because the case of someone who lives in the chutzner of their friend is a case of a hediot. He's trying to learn out to be poshet that shaila from the case of hektish. So Shmuel does equate hektish with hediot. So, and in the above brisa we saw that Shmuel said that to pay back this brick of dates to a hediot, you have to pay 49, and if it's paying it back to hektish, you pay 50 plus the chumshayu. So we see really that Shmuel does say that hediot is equal to hektish. More says, truth is that Shmuel was chayzer on that later memra. Hodabei Shmuel mahahi. That in that case where Shmuel was trying to derive the case of someone who lives in the chutzner of their friend without the friend knowing about it, he was chayzer on that, and didn't hold of it that we could learn it from the case of hektish. So more asks, why is he going to be chosef from that brisa and tell us, no, we can't learn. That really that hektish with hediot will be different. We can't derive the case of adar v'chotzer chaveru shelo midaito. We can't derive it from the case of hektish. Why don't you keep that? Because that implies that the Hediot and the Hektish are similar. Why don't you keep them similar, and just change what he said above? So he's being choser on that later one, but in keeping the above one, which said that they Hektish and Hediot had differing dinim, that you pay back the Hediot 49 and you pay back Hektish 50 plus Choim Shayu. Why isn't he cholik on the first part, where he said that they have differing dinim, and keep the later limud where they have similar dinim? Why did he choose to be choser on the later one, limud, and stick with the first one? That's the more shaila. Why would he be choser from that? Maybe he should be choser from the first limud. And for the Gemara, no, he couldn't be choser from the first one. The reason why he was choser from the second one, which implied that the Hektish and Hediot had similar dinim, was because he was going like Rava, Kidu Rava. The Omar Rava said, Hektish shlo midas ke Hediot midas dami. Rava teaches that Hektish is like the Shechina. The Shechina always knows what's going on. So even if some of their materials of the Bedek Abayas or Hektish will be being used, and it seems like Hektish doesn't know, but it's always considered that it's known and it's being used. And that would have the same din as a Hediot, that an object of somebody else's that the person knows that it's being used. And therefore, in the case where by living under the brick, putting the brick into one's house and living under it, that's similar. So that's why he was choser, and he didn't want to learn from that case, the case of someone who lived dar b'chotzer chaver shalom medaito, because he didn't want to derive from that hektish case that would mean that someone who lives in the property of somebody else without the owner of that property knowing about it, that it should be chayav to pay. You can't derive that from hektish, because hektish is the case where the owner knew about it and actually said, you can live there, but you're going to have to pay me. And that would be pashut that he would have to pay for it. So you can't derive the case where the owner didn't know that he was living in the house from a case where the owner did know that he was living in the house. And every case of hektish is similar to the owner knowing that he's living in the house. That's why he had to retract from that later limud. Omar Rava, Hani Shekule, Titavu Chavisa Dechamra. These porters, these sabalim, carriers, that they broke a barrel of wine, Lechen Bona, Lechen Vua, for a store owner. So the din is that a barrel of wine on the day of the shuk can be sold for 5. And if it's not the day of the shuk, it's sold for 4. So they broke this barrel, and then they couldn't get it to the owner. He couldn't sell it. So the Gemara is explaining, Mizdavna biyom deshuka, Mizdavna behei. It's sold for 5. Bishar yome Mizdavna be'arba. On the other days, it's sold for 4, cheaper, because the demand is not as high. When they're going to pay back what they damaged, how do they pay it back? It depends when they're paying back. Actually, it's a machlokas, meforshim. If we're talking about when it was broken or when they're paying back. I think Rashi goes when they're paying back. So, Daru lay, if they're returning it on the day that he'll have time to sell it, then they have to give him back a barrel, because he'll turn around and be able to sell the barrel for its good price. Biyom Deshuka means that he'll have time to sell it. So Mahadru lay Chavisa. You give him a barrel of wine, he'll turn around and he'll sell a barrel of wine, just like the same type of barrel that they broke. So Bishar Yome, however, if they're returning it on a day that he can't sell it in the shuk, and he doesn't want to keep it around, so they don't give him a barrel of wine, because then he'll have to wait for the day of the shuk. And a barrel of wine on that day would only be worth 4. They would be giving him back like less than what they broke. Mahadule hay. So they give him hay, money. They don't give him a barrel of wine. They give him the higher money that he could have gotten if he had sold it on the day of the shuk. And now he doesn't really lose because they broke a barrel that he could have used on this. He could have sold and gotten hay, and now they're giving him hay because they're returning to him on not on the market day where he couldn't sell a barrel, so they give him as though he had sold a barrel. They give him that same amount of money. Lo Amran, and we didn't say that he gives him hay when it's being given back not on the market day. The only time we say that he gets, if they're returning it not on market day, and they want to give him as though the same amount that he could have earned on market day, so then that's only when on market day, the owner of the store didn't have any barrels of wine to sell, and because they broke the barrel, he didn't have any barrels of wine to sell, and he didn't sell wine that day. Then if they want to return it not on market day, they give him 5 because they caused him not to be able to sell a barrel of wine that day. He didn't have. That's why they're giving him back that higher amount. But if it was found out that the store owner, he had a number of barrels of wine on that day, and he didn't even sell them all, so then they don't have to give him 5. If they're returning to him the damage that they caused, not on market day, they don't have to give him 5 because he couldn't have gotten 5 anyway because he didn't even sell all the barrels that he had. They didn't cause him any loss. So they can give him, the Gemara says, "Hai boy lezvune." He should have sold those, and he didn't even sell those. So they don't have to. They can give him, in that case, a barrel again, which is maybe cheaper for them because they can buy a barrel for 4 and give it to him, and they can be yotzi there, paying, recompensating him with just giving him a barrel of wine. And now, back in the case where they do have to give him 5 coins for the barrel, in the case where he didn't have any wine, but we don't really give him just 5 coins. We subtract from those 5 coins the manchele agar tirche v'demei vaz naisa. They take the 5 and they also subtract from that what the store owner himself would have had to, the time and the effort that he would have had to invest selling the wine for each customer that came by. And also the berries, which you would have had to have attached to the barrel. The barrels were made out of ceramics. You have to sometimes even hire a professional to put the faucet into the barrel. All of those expenses that we subtract from that amount, from the 5, when they pay him that amount. And we'll stop here.
So what if the wine owner wasn't going to get